Hi, this is Bruce Boxleitner, and you're listening to Then Is Now podcast.
Greetings, Spice fans. Silk City Hot Sauce is now sponsoring the Dorkening Podcast Network. Our craft sauces are made in Vermont in small, high-quality batches using locally sourced, farm-grown ingredients. Silk City Hot Sauce comes in a variety of heat strengths and killer flavors like Jezebel, Erotic Fever, Mango Madness, and Good Morning Jonestown. And don't forget our newest creation, Hot Syrup. Make no mistake, Spice fans, this is the queen of sweet heat. There's new and unique flavors coming out all the time. Best of all, right now, listeners of the Dorkening Podcast Network can go to SilkCityHotSauce.com and use coupon code DORK. Not only will you get 20% off your order, we'll also throw in a free bottle of hot sauce. That's SilkCityHotSauce.com. Coupon code DORK.
Writer David Mish, who worked on such classic TV shows as Mork and Mindy, Police Squad, and Duckman, is embarking on the busiest stretch of his post-career career. He's doing 21 online shows in 15 weeks. The main event in January of 2022 is his biannual 5-week course, The World of Musical Satire, Thursdays at 1 p.m. from January 13th to February 10th. Join David as he explores a wide variety of genres and eras, especially America since 1950, including discussions on such greats as Gilbert and Sullivan, Monty Python, Spinal Tap, South Park, and more. Plus, short interviews with such greats as Weird Al Yankovic, Michael Palin, and many more. Tickets for this course can be found at uclaextension.edu. Then, on January 16th at 6 p.m., at the San Miguel Literary Sala Distinguished Speaker Series, you can join David and his special guest, the fabulous Jeff Reno, famous for such things as Meet Joe Black, The West Wing, and Moonlighting. In particular, the episode Atomic Shakespeare, listed as one of TV Guide's top 100 episodes of all time. Tickets to hear him speak on this can be found at sanmiguelliterarysala.org. For more information, visit davidmish.com. Hi, this is Re-Gor, host of Then Is Now podcast and The East Meets the West. I just wanted to say thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers. We appreciate your support as we grow the audience for our shows. You could find our links to our Patreon page as well as our TeePublic page at havenpodcasts.com. With Patreon, you'll get a lot of exclusive stuff, including our monthly pop culture newsletter, cool gifts, discounts for TeePublic, and our special exclusive show, Then Is Now Filmmakers series, in which we interview directors, producers, writers, composers, special effects guys, basically anybody who works behind the scenes in film and television, and get their insights into the process of creating films and TV shows. Also at our TeePublic page, you'll find cool merch that you can get or even give to others as gifts. You can find those links at our website, or you can go directly to tpublic.com/stores/havenpodcasts and patreon.com/thenisnowpodcast. Enjoy!
What kind of a sick school is this?
Uh-oh, Dongo!
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
You got spunk. I hate spunk.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
Oh, righty then.
How you doing? Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Say hello to my little friend.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
What are you people? On dope?
Stop whining.
I got a crap on your deck that can choke a donkey.
Who is your daddy?
I'm sorry, but all questions must be submitted in writing.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Can I do that?
I'll be back.
A dynamite! Show me the money!
Don't!
Up your nose with your rubber hose.
A what?
I'm sailing! I'm sailing!
Groovy.
You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
Here's looking at you, kid.
We got no food. We got no jobs. Our pets' heads are falling off.
Come to the coast. We get together. Have a few laughs.
Hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey.
I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV.
I love it when a plan comes together.
What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
We're on a mission from God.
Hello and welcome to Then Is Now Podcast, the show in which we discuss pop culture of the past and how it relates today, as well as helping people introduce the younger generation to all the cool stuff they missed out on. I am your host, Re-Gor, and I'm with my co-host, Chris Esper. What's happening, dude?
Hey, man, how's it going?
Good, good. You know, I ended up seeing Spider-Man No Way Home again.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I loved it even more this time around. I picked up a lot of details I missed the first time. My wife and I went again because my grandson hadn't seen it, and he was kind of disappointed that we went without him last week. So, but one thing I did start watching the show Castle. You ever see that?
Yes, haven't, but I certainly heard of it.
Yeah, with Nathan Fillion, and shame on me because I'm a big Nathan Fillion fan, but it was just one of those ones I didn't. At the time, I didn't have enough time to add another TV show to my list, and then.
Right.
It just, I never got around to it. But we've been watching The Rookie, which I've told you before about.
Oh, yeah.
Which is an awesome Nathan Fillion show. That's new. Well, new. It's in its 4th season now. But,
yeah.
You know, Rickie's on a break, and we wanted something else to watch. We had finished Handmaid's Tale Season 4 and a couple of other things, so we started watching Castle. And I only watched the first episode so far, but I really like it. He's really good.
No, he is good. That's another show I have to actually get into and watch, both Castle and... Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. So what else you got going on?
Oh, just like same old, just working and just trying to get writing done. Yeah, so same old. Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, Bob Saget. That's all I gotta say.
I know. Folks, if you haven't heard it, last week we talked a little bit about some of the celebrities who have passed away recently, and now we need to add Bob Saget to that list. Oh, man. You know, I always knew he was on Full House, but I never really watched that show, and it was Funniest Home Videos, or America's Funniest Home Videos that I remember him from.
Oh, yeah, for sure. My sister always watched Full House. I didn't get into it until like a little bit later on, but certainly I do remember seeing it, watching it. I also remember America's Funniest Home Videos. But I think the one thing that always stood out to me about him is, so first of all, have you seen the sequel to Dumb and Dumber? Dumb and Dumber, well, really it's a prequel, but yeah.
Yes, yeah.
There's that one scene in that movie where he goes into the bathroom, Bob Saget. He's like the lead girl's father, I think, I don't remember. But he goes into the bathroom and there's like chocolate over the walls, but he thinks it's shit. And so he's in there going, there's shit everywhere. There's shit all over the walls.
Oh yeah.
Probably the only funny scene in what is otherwise a shitty movie.
Right. Although the funny thing about that is I rented the DVD when it came out, and it has what's called pillow mode. So it plays the movie vertically. So if you're laying down like on the couch or in your bed watching it, you can see it as if you're sitting up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's unique.
He directed, didn't he direct Dirty Work with Norm?
Yes, he did.
Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald, yep.
Yeah, who passed away recently too. I guess end of last year. He did his stand-up comedy though. Like I remember him being on the Tonight Show and stuff. But if you ever get a chance to YouTube his stand-up comedy, it's hilarious.
Oh,
he's super dirty.
Oh yeah, no, very much unlike the TV persona that he had both in Full House and on America's Funniest Videos. He was a raunchy man.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Well, he did that this documentary called The Aristocrats.
Oh yeah,
it's about that famous joke. His is the dirtiest one, and it's hysterical. It's also the longest one.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, it's the best.
I'm very familiar with it, but I haven't seen it. I've got to check that one out because that's on my list.
Really good. Yeah.
There's one joke of his that I will tell because I heard him say it on a primetime show. So he goes, wow backwards is wow. Wow upside down is mom. Mom upside down is dad's favorite lunch.
Wow. No pun intended. That's awesome.
Okay, folks, well, we've had enough fun here. Now on to serious stuff. We're continuing our conversation about helping you learn how to introduce people to horror movies. Now, our recommendation is to start with the Universal Classic horror movies, which is by no means the way you have to do it, but it is our best advice. We've already covered all the Universal Dracula, Mummy, and Invisible Man movies, and in the last part of what we're doing now, we covered the first three in the Frankenstein series. So if you're not caught up, please check those out. We covered Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and Son of Frankenstein. Today, we are doing the next three films in the series, The Wolfman from 1941, The Ghost of Frankenstein from 1942, and Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman from 1943. The reason The Wolfman is included is because it doesn't have its own series of sequels and is tied into the Frankenstein sequels, as well as one we've already covered, which is House of Dracula. So if you haven't already done so, please go watch these films and come back and listen to our analysis. Class is in session.
I have a bad feeling about this.
How could I possibly be expected to handle school on a day like this?
Food fight!
Hey, you in my class?
I am today.
I think you should consider transferring to shop class. Woo! Now, very few students are severely injured in shop class.
Bueller.
When you were in school,
Bueller.
did you ever cut class?
Bueller.
Yeah, I guess I did. Sure, most kids cut classes.
Good. Sign this. He's sick.
I get so lonely when I hear that third attendance bell ring and all my kids are not here.
7 years of college down the drain.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
You lack discipline. As long as I'm here, there will be no grades or gold stars or demerits. We're going to have recess all the time.
Woo! Go, play, and have fun now.
Johnny Williams was killed?
Yes.
Find something?
Animal tracks.
Whoever is bitten by a werewolf and lives becomes a werewolf himself.
Oh, don't hand me that. You're just wasting your time.
The wolf bit you, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. You wouldn't want to run away with a murderer, would you?
Oh, Larry, you're not. You know you're not.
I killed Bela. I killed Richardson. If I stay here any longer, you can't tell who'll be next.
Larry Talbot returns to his ancestral home in Llanwelly, Wales, to bury his recently deceased brother and reconcile with his estranged father, Sir John Talbot. While there, Larry falls in love with a local girl named Gwen Conliffe, who runs an antique shop. As an excuse to talk to her, he purchases a walking stick decorated with a silver wolf's head. Gwen tells him that it represents a werewolf, which she defines as a man who changes into a wolf at certain times of the year. Various villages recite a poem whenever the subject of werewolves comes up. Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. Later that night, Larry attempts to rescue Gwen's friend Jenny from what he believes to be a sudden wolf attack. He kills the beast with his new walking stick, but is bitten on the chest. A Romani fortune teller named Maliva reveals to Larry that the animal which bit him was her son Bela, in the form of a wolf. She also reveals that Larry will transform into a wolf, since one who is bitten by a werewolf and lives will turn into one himself. Larry learns from her that silver is the only thing that can kill a werewolf. Like Maliva warned, Larry transforms into a werewolf on the following full moon and kills several villagers. He returns to normal the next morning, initially with no memory of his rampage. However, the recollection of his crimes gradually returns to him, leaving him horrified and racked with guilt. The night of the next full moon, he begs his father to restrain him and to prevent him from hurting anyone else. Nevertheless, he becomes a werewolf again, breaks free of his restraints, and attacks Gwen. Seeing that his son is doomed to become a werewolf and kill innocent people as long as he lives, Sir John reluctantly puts Larry out of his misery by bludgeoning him over the head with his own silver-headed cane. The movie ends with Sir John and Gwen watching in horror as the dead werewolf transforms back into Larry's human corpse. So, Chris, first impression, was this your first time watching it?
No, I think I've seen The Wolfman on TCM, I want to say, years and years ago. I really liked it then, and I like it even more now. I just thought, I just think to me, it's actually the most atmospheric movie, I think, of all these Universal horror movies, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I saw this as a kid, and, of course, this is among my favorites. I love Chaney's portrayal as the tragic Lawrence Talbot.
Yeah.
And as a kid, it always made me, and even my friends, too, want to be a werewolf, so...
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's just the werewolf's always been one of my favorite monsters. I love the story, and like you said, the atmosphere in this is great. And yeah, absolutely, this is among Universal's best horror films, in my opinion.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I think it's right up there, along with Frankenstein, Dracula, and Invisible Man.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's directed by George Wagner, who, it's funny because when I was watching it this time around, when the name came up, it rung a bell, but it wasn't until I did the research that I realized where I had seen his name before several times. He's done a few movies and TV shows, including Man-Made Monster with Chaney, and several episodes of the Batman 66 TV series, among many others. And that's where I recognize his name from. I had watched a bunch of those recently. But I liked his directing here. I thought it was solid.
I thought it was too. It's very atmospheric with the fog and the lighting, the cinematography. Even the way he directs the actors, a lot of it just really works very, very well.
Yep. And of course, it's written by Kurt Siodmak, and we've talked about him before because, he's done a ton of Universal horrors, including The Invisible Man Returns, Invisible Woman, Invisible Agent, and Son of Dracula, among several others that we may or may not cover on this show. And then in our cast, we've got Lon Chaney Jr., of course, as Lawrence Larry Talbot, a.k.a. the Wolfman. And, he's one of those guys, what can we say about the great actor that hasn't been said before? I mean, he owned this character, and no other actor ever played the Wolfman.
Yeah, no, and, the whole cast all around. I mean, when I saw the credits come up and I see all the names listed, I had forgotten who was in this, and I'm like, wow, what a cast between him and Claude Rains and, Bela Lugosi even. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into them in a little bit. I just want to talk about Chaney for a little bit here because, he's the only actor who actually played all four monsters, Dracula, the Frankenstein monster, and the Mummy, as well as the Wolfman.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But this is the one he's remembered for. He plays the part of Tragic Talbot convincingly, I think.
Yeah, without a doubt.
We may have said this before when we talked about him because he was in Son of Dracula, but just to reiterate for those who don't know this stuff, his real name was Crichton Chaney. He, of course, is the son of Lon Chaney, the man of 1,000 faces from the silent film era. And we've talked about Lon Chaney Sr. a few times because of his, doing his own makeup. But in this case, it wasn't Chaney Jr. who did his own makeup. It was, of course, Jack Pierce that we'll talk about a little bit later. But the producers thought it would be a good selling point to have him change his name from Crichton Chaney to Lon Chaney Jr., and he never liked that, even throughout his career. I think at a certain point he drops the Jr. and is just Lon Chaney. Yeah,
I noticed that in the credits. Yeah, it wasn't Lon Chaney Jr., it was just Lon Chaney.
Oh, okay, yeah. I didn't notice that this time around, but... and one of his first major roles was of Mice and Men with Burgess Meredith. Did you ever see that?
No, I certainly heard of it though.
Oh my God, you got to see that. I've seen the remake too with John Malkovich and brain fart, Lieutenant Dan. Oh, Lieutenant Dan. Who was the guy that Gary Sinise? Thank you.
Yes. Okay. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but the originals, Burgess Meredith is George, and Chaney plays Lenny, and it's just so good. I actually picked it up on DVD a year ago, and
That's awesome.
my wife used to work at a as a cook as a part-time job at an old folks home that's nearby here, and I would go in on like Sundays and play movies for them, or play a movie on a given Sunday, and this was one of the ones that I played, and they loved it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And sadly though, Lon Chaney Jr. was a major alcoholic, which affected his career, and he died of heart failure at the age of 67 in 1973, which was pretty old for back then, but it was still far too young, I think.
Yeah, no, well, for today, yeah, no, it's far too young.
Yeah. And then, of course, we've got Claude Rains, who plays his father, Sir John Talbot. Another great that we've talked about before, both in The Invisible Man as well as Casablanca. We covered that on a previous episode, you and I.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a small part here, but I feel like it's a pivotal role, and ultimately it's a tragic one as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I like the way he played it here.
Yeah, I do. He does that austere kind of, rich British person very well.
Yeah. Well, he did it well in Casablanca, and he did it well here.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And then Warren William played Dr. Lloyd. Now, I didn't know this till I did my research here, but he was a major star of a lot of pre-code talkies. In particular, a series of films where he played a character called Michael Lanyard, also known as the Lone Wolf. And most of the titles were like The Lone Wolf and, or The Lone Wolf Versus, or whatever, which I've never heard of before. Now I want to go check those out.
I want to check those out, too, because I was looking on, I think it was IMDb, and I saw those credits, and I'm like, interesting. I think even George Wagner, he had a few credits, too, where there were like a couple of like wolf pictures in addition to this one.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so be curious to see those.
Yeah, oh, definitely. A quick aside here, I've been on the late at night, not late at night, but like we go to bed and I'm still awake. So I'll throw on, I have a whole stack of Charlie Chan DVDs, which I used to watch as a kid. I used to stay up till
Nice.
1 in the morning to watch either Charlie Chan or Sherlock Holmes, whatever was on. And those movies from that era are just so good. It's so much fun.
Yeah. I think I've seen those DVDs too. Are those like the $1 DVDs? There's like a bunch in like a 50 movie pack. Like they had like a bunch of those like Charlie Chan ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are cool. Those are cool. I had one a long time ago. I don't know where it went, but it was like a bunch of like detective movies and a bunch of like Dick Tracy movies, Sherlock Holmes. It was really cool. Really cool
awesome
stuff.
Yeah, I love that stuff. And it's just like I said, it reminds me of when I was a kid and I would stay up late to watch those movies. So now it's like, yeah, I'll throw it on. I'd never wake up in the middle of the night, but if I do, I'll try and throw it on if I can think of it.
Yeah, there you go.
Then, of course, we've got Ralph Bellamy, who plays Colonel Paul Montford. This guy has been in tons of stuff, and we're going to see him shortly in Ghost of Frankenstein when we talk about that. He also, and I didn't know this either, he played Ellery Queen in a series of Ellery Queen films in the early 40s, which, if you don't know, Ellery Queen was a character in a series of novels that was sort of like a detective, I guess.
Right.
And he acted up until 1990. Now, Chris, did you know this? He played the character of Randolph Duke in both Trading Places and Coming to America.
I knew his name looked familiar. I'm like, wait a minute, I know this name, and I couldn't have put two and two together. But now that I'm talking about, I'm like, holy shit, that is him.
Yeah.
Yep. It was always him and what's the other actor?
It was Don Amici, right?
Don Amici, yes, that's right. And it's funny that you brought that up because of course, both of them being John Landis pictures, and well, when we get more into Wolfman, I'll explain. But yeah, I kept thinking of American Werewolf in London the whole time.
I didn't even think of that. No, I didn't actually know until today that he was in Coming to America. I mean, I've only seen that once when it first came out.
Yeah, him and Don Amici, they have like a brief cameo where they reprise their roles from Trading Places. It's like almost like it takes place in the same universe, but except for them being rich. Now they're broke. They're on the street, and Eddie Murphy's character gives them money.
I remember that now.
And then I think it's Don Amici. He turns to Ralph Balmy's character and goes, "Randolph, we're back."
Yeah. I vaguely remember that now. I'm gonna have to check that out again.
Great.
I kind of want to see the sequel, anyways. The Coming to America.
The Is it Coming to America sequel?
Yeah, it's out. It's been out for a while now. I think it's on like
Yeah,
Netflix or something.
you're not missing. Yeah. I was gonna say you're not missing much.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not. It's not the worst thing I've seen, but it's like you're just kind of like, eh.
Yeah. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, I kind of heard that. So.
Yeah.
Then moving on here, we've got Maria Uspenskaya, who plays Maliva, the Romani fortune teller. She came to America with a Russian group called the Art Theater in 1922, and when the group returned to Russia, she defected to America and stayed behind. She was a major Broadway actress for more than a decade until she founded the School of Dramatic Art in New York in 1929, and then she finally had to accept roles in Hollywood in order to help fund the school. So she basically, that's why she acted throughout the rest of her career was for that school. From what I understand in my research, she was a force to be reckoned with, and sometimes she made it difficult for her coworkers because she was so heavily into astrology that it dictated when she could be on camera and stuff like that. Like she had an astrologer that I think was like a famous astrologer for like a famous Los Angeles newspaper, and she would tell her when she could be on camera and when she couldn't. So it was much to the chagrin of the people working on these films. Is that like she would be like, "Well, I can't do this today because my astrologer says today's not good," you know. But she's a force to be reckoned with in that, and she was great. I thought she was really great in this.
Yeah, she was really good.
Oh yeah, and her lines from this film are still used to this day.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember? Was it Howling or American Werewolf where they showed the scene of her basically saying, "Whoever becomes bitten by a werewolf"?
I think it may have been Howling, but now I can't remember.
Yeah, that's weird. Well, we're going to talk about her again soon because her character appears in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. But one thing I thought was kind of funny, I noticed this time around, there's a long shot of her standing next to Chaney, and she just looks so tiny.
Yes, I noticed that. Yes.
Oh, man. And then we've got, of course, Evelyn Onkers as Gwen Conliffe. We talked about her in Son of Dracula and The Invisible Man's Revenge. And she was in quite a few movies, including The Mad Ghoul and Captive Wild Woman.
I liked her in this a lot, I have to say.
Yeah, she was very
She stood
good.
out. Yeah.
Then Patrick Knowles, which I like this guy. He plays Frank Andrews, and I always liked when he shows up in a film. We're going to see him again in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, also playing a character named Frank, but no relation. He played a lot of leading man and supporting actor roles throughout his career. He was in the movie Charge of the Light Brigade in 1936, and played Will Scarlet alongside Errol Flynn's Robin Hood in The Adventures of Robin Hood in 1938. And his later years saw him, being very concerned about being typecast. But he was in over 125 films, so that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
Then we've got Bela Lugosi, who plays Bela the Gypsy.
How appropriate.
Yeah. I know, really, they couldn't come up with a different name. But, he's got a brief but significant role here, of course, because he creates the Wolfman. And I feel like, watching him in this movie, he just looked great. He looked really dashing. And he sold the part well, I thought.
Oh, yeah, no, he did. And it was a nice, well, I shouldn't say nice surprise. I've seen it before, but in seeing it again, I forgot he was in this, actually. So then I see his name pop up in the credits. I'm like, wow. Like then when you see his name, then you know that you're in for a ride.
Yeah.
And he was great. He was great in this.
No, go. You must go. Then J.M. Kerrigan played Charles Conliffe, who was Gwen's father. He was in Gone with the Wind and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, as well as a ton of other movies. Now, there's one guy, Forrester Harvey, who played Twiddle. He was in The Invisible Man and The Invisible Man Returns. I mistakenly, because I kind of watched the movies out of order from what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
And I thought, without giving too much away just yet, but the little girl's father in Ghost of Frankenstein, I saw him in that, and then I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh, that's the same guy. But when I looked it up, it wasn't. So he sounded a lot like him.
Huh. No, you know what? I did the same thing. I watched the movies a little bit out of order. I watched Ghost of Frankenstein first. For some reason, I thought the leading lady in that movie was actually we just went over her, and I'm blanking.
Oh, Gwen Conliffe.
Yes. For some reason,
Evelyn Onkers.
Yeah, for some reason I thought it was her, and then I looked it up and it wasn't. I'm like, oh, weird. Oh well.
Yeah. And then lastly, we've got Faye Helm, who played Jenny, and she wasn't in too many things. Not a lot to say about her. So let's dive into the film here, Chris.
Yeah. So first, I have to say this was an interesting way to introduce the cast. They show like a shot of them and their name because like none of the other movies that we discussed on this had done that. So I thought that was cool.
Oh,
I forgot about that. And again, what a cast! As we just broke it down, Claude Rains, Al Cheney, Bela Lugosi. I mean, it's like holy shit! You're in for a ride when you see the credits.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wonder like how that translates today. Like if you had, like I know they did the remake with Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins, but that just wasn't enough to sell them. Well, I guess the movie itself wasn't that good anyway. So it's like, this has not only a strong story, but the strong cast to support it.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, I didn't see the remake actually, at least not yet. But I kind of heard very polarizing things about that one. It was either pretty good or wasn't that good. So
I'd say it was pretty good. I've only seen it the one time I saw it in the movies. I remember not hating it.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the opening shots, like with the fog, again, I think it's the most atmospheric of all the Universal monster movies, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's definitely one of the best, and Wagner really knew what he was doing when he put this together.
Totally.
Now, folks, Spency and I did cover this film already in 2020 during our 13 Days of Hallowtober, in which we discussed the scariest movies of all time. I showed this to him when he was a little kid, and he's been in love with this movie ever since, and the Universal classics. I think that's a good selling point for this movie, is that it really captures something, the imagination, I guess, of the kids when they watch it, and especially like you and I talked about before, Chris, where the Wolfman sort of represents adolescence. And, your body's changing and he can't control his emotions,
Right. Yeah, no, that's definitely very evident here. I'd say that, but I think in a way, it's sort of even like in the same way that we talked about even Frankenstein. Frankenstein is like a child, and he's realizing what he Frankenstein's monster, excuse me, realizing what realizing what him as a monster, realizing what he is and how he needs a friend. I kind of got that same vibe here as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
He had no real support system,
Yeah, exactly. And as we see later with Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, there's a point where everyone thinks he's crazy, thinking that this is happening to him.
Right. And that's sometimes that happens to kids. They tell you something and nobody believes them, and then it's a werewolf invasion. Yeah.
Right.
And so Larry returns home, as we said in the synopsis at the beginning, and seems to have lost his British accent, which I thought was interesting.
That is interesting. I didn't even notice that.
It's like, how long was he in America? They don't even address it like, oh, son, you've lost your accent,
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, no.
But it was funny that, Sir John turns the attic into an observatory, and where Larry gets to do a little creepy peeping on Gwen.
Yes, I noticed that. I'm like, actually, it's funny. Two things stuck out in my mind when I saw that scene. One, I kept thinking of Rear Window because, you gotta.
Yeah.
But also, my second thought was, if this was in a movie today, people would freak.
Oh, absolutely. I think this came up when we had, what was it that we had on the show? We were talking about, and this scene came up because you mentioned the movie Peeping Tom.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that, I still, like, I never did as a kid because I didn't think anything of it because, back in the 70s, who cares?
Yeah.
But when I watch it now, it does make me a little uncomfortable. I'm like, ooh, maybe they should have done that a little bit.
Yeah, no, as it did me, but at the same time, again, I was just like, man, the things that you could do back then that you couldn't do now.
Right, I know. Then, of course, Jack Pierce did the makeup on this, which, of course, another excellent job. Now, the makeup was originally intended for Henry Hull, who starred in The Werewolf of London a few years prior. But Henry decided he wanted to use his own makeup, so I'm kind of glad that they didn't do that.
I am too. I mean, I like the makeup here too. I'm not sure if I thought it was like as good as like the makeup in Frankenstein, but I thought this did look really good.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I think has affected our view sometimes, and it's hard to go back, is we're kind of now used to the more canine-looking bipedal werewolves.
Right.
And what's cool is, a quick side note here too, Spencer and I have played this game. It's called, it's a role-playing game called Werewolf the Apocalypse. And in it, they have different forms that you can take as a werewolf. And the form that Cheney has here is called the glabro form, where you're still an upright humanoid, but you've got the hairy face, the fangs, and the claws on your hands and feet. And then there's the Krynos form, which is the upright wolf, humanoid-looking wolf, but with the giant snout and the sinewy arms and legs, that sort of thing. And then there's there's two other forms, which like the last one is Lupin. I forget the next to last one, but they're basically more canine-looking as they go. And then the last one is like the wolf in American Werewolf in London.
Right. Yeah.
So when I think of it that way now, that's easy for me now to justify movies like this, where you've got, especially back in the day, there are a few other werewolf movies where it's just a guy with, like I Was a Teenage Werewolf. He's upright, but he's got the hairy face and hands. And
Sure, yeah. Well, and let's make another comparison for a movie that came later, The Fly, 1958. That's another one where the actor is upright. The head is a fly, and the hand is like that of a fly. So, in a way, I kind of thought about that as I was watching this in a weird way, because they're both kind of similar in that way. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, in that respect, it works. It makes perfect sense.
It does, and it makes sense for the times too. They couldn't do the prosthetics and the animatronics that we do today. So
yeah.
So Werewolf of London didn't really take with audiences, so that was good that he used this makeup here. He used yak hair, which I feel like we mentioned that in a previous. Oh, you know what? It might have been House of Dracula. When
right, okay, yep.
Cheney showed up as the Wolfman again.
That's right. Yep.
And I guess the yak hair was also used in the wig for Bozo the Clown. You familiar with
Is that right?
Bozos? Yeah.
That's funny.
I guess Cheney was. I read something about him being allergic to the makeup, but I guess it wasn't enough to stop the production. So, and then of course we've got even a man who is pure in heart and says their prayers by night may still become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. That's such a classic line.
That's a great line. Yeah.
Now, part of the reason why I brought it up again here, because we said it earlier, but it mentions that he becomes a wolf when the autumn moon is bright. So, and there was something else I've just read a little while ago, maybe it was in the summary, where he's a seasonal creature. So in this reality, and they don't really harp on it because it doesn't work with the plot, because they need him to keep turning into the Wolfman. But my understanding, and I was talking to Spencer about this, is that he really only turns into a werewolf in the autumn. And so it may not necessarily have to be a full moon.
Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't done any research into that because I didn't have time. But if anyone listening has any insights on that, please message us and send us an email.
Yeah.
So I thought it was also interesting, too, that after he buys the cane and meets up with Gwen, he says to her, like, when he shows up that night to take her out, he goes, "I wore my cane," which was a line I never really, I guess if I've heard it before, I never noticed it, but I guess back then canes were accessories to men's clothing, like hats or ties. So you wear your hat, you wear your tie, you wear your cane.
I didn't even pick up on that. That's interesting.
Yeah. I noticed it this time around. I don't know if I noticed it once before, but... And then, of course, Gwen realizes he's coming, even though she's telling him no, no, no. Another thing, he kind of forces himself on her. Not physically, but just says, well, I'm taking you out anyways. But then she shows up with a friend, and I wonder if she was trying to set him up with Jenny.
Yeah, that's right.
Because she was engaged, so...
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
To Patrick Knowles' character, Frank.
Yeah.
So, and as we mentioned, this movie's been referenced in tons of movies like The Howling and American Werewolf in London.
Mm-hmm.
But the score in this film, dude, the score is so awesome.
The score's phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just it's one of those scores that not only gets stuck in your head, but we've heard it. We've heard bits of it in other movies.
Well, particularly the transformation scenes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there was. It's funny. I can remember first hearing the score. This is really odd, but this is where I first heard it. I remember seeing the Charles Grodin movie Beethoven. There's a scene where the dog is watching the Wolfman on television, and you hear the music, and like it just like it gets stuck in your head. It's really good.
That's funny. Yeah, there's three guys listed for the music, but the one that comes to mind is Hans J. Salter. I think he's like the main force behind a lot of this music.
Yeah.
Especially in like the ones that we've been covering, like the main monster characters.
Right.
There was something you reminded me of with the Beethoven line, but that's pretty funny. Oh, you know what? I had again, another aside, but when I was a kid, I remember it was a big deal when King Kong versus Godzilla came on TV.
Yes.
And at the beginning, he's fighting the octopus, and they were using music from the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I remember, I think I was like 10 in like 1980. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Creature from the Black Lagoon.
That's funny.
Oh my God. But then, as we go on, things start to get out of control, and then Ralph Bellamy goes, "Wolf, gypsy, murder, what's going on here?"
Yeah, I love how he delivers that line.
Yeah. And, of course, they find the cane by Bela the gypsy's body. Wouldn't it have been covered in blood?
There's a few instances like that throughout this movie where I thought the same thing. I'm like, well, wait a minute, wouldn't there be blood? Wouldn't this happen? But, I mean, I tried to... suspend disbelief a little bit.
Yeah. But, I don't know, maybe it's just police work in the 1940s. I mean, they contaminate the crime scenes all the time, and then they even give Talbot his cane back.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't they, examine his clothes to see? Remember, he kept saying, oh, the thing, ripped through my shirt and my jacket and bit me.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly.
Examine the blood that was on his coat. I don't know.
Exactly.
Although I did think it was a cool touch. I think it was the character Frank's dog didn't like Talbot because obviously he was sensing the werewolf.
I liked that too. And that scene in particular was what reminded me of American Werewolf in London. There's a scene just like that in American Werewolf in London where he goes near a dog and starts barking. So those little touches, you can see where John Landis got his inspiration.
Oh yeah, definitely. So then Frank comments on how Talbot seems tragic somehow. He says that to Gwen, which is kind of cool because it's foreshadowing the tragic path that he's going.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And then Larry sort of has some kind of, well, I call it shell shock, but everyone else today calls it PTSD, because he flips out at the carnival shooting range when the wolf target pops up.
Yeah, I really like that scene. I also like the scene that was following that one, where he and Gwen are right by a tree, and he gives her a necklace. I just thought that was a really nice scene.
Yeah.
And then right after that scene happens, there's this really cool montage of all this surreal imagery and these these weird thoughts are in his head. I mean, it's terrific.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember thinking the first time I saw that, going, "What the heck is going on here?"
Yeah.
Oh man, but you know what, folks? This movie sets up all the rules for werewolves that we still adhere to for the most part today. Silver, the full moon, wolfbane, the pentagram. The pentagram, not so much, is not used all that often. But being bitten causes the victim to turn into a werewolf if they live. Which, one thing about this movie that always bothered me is we don't actually get to see the wound.
That bothered me too. When he first shows it to, I think he showed it to a doctor or somebody, and seeing it again just recently, I was a little bit frustrated that we didn't get to see that there was no wound.
Right, and for some reason I remember it looking like a pentagram. So I don't know if was maybe House of Dracula. Did they show it then?
Oh, I don't remember.
I don't either. After a while, they do kind of blur together.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I always thought that was weird. And I never really understood that aspect of the werewolf. He sees the pentagram in the hand of his next victim, which I guess for plot purposes here that works, but I think beyond this movie it's not really necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a werewolf. He's just going to kill whatever comes
Yeah,
to him.
exactly. Yeah.
Now, in the first transformation, we only get to see his feet transform, which also was makeup by Jack Pierce. But one other thing too that they established is that werewolves heal fast because the next day he's got a scar instead of a gash on his chest.
That's true. Yeah. Well, and going back to that first transformation, by today's standards, it's not great, but for the time, that was pretty cool. I mean, the cross dissolves going in and out. I mean, looking at it today, it's like yeah, whatever. But if you think about the context of the context of the times, it does work.
Oh yeah, it must have blown people away, and I guarantee you, 90% of the audience was like, "How the hell did they do that?"
Yeah.
Because if you didn't know better, it looks like he's transforming.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I do like about this movie is how Maliva comes to help him because she feels bad because her son was the one that turned him into the werewolf.
Yeah.
Basically passed on the curse, which it was funny because she gives him the protection necklace, and then he hands it off to Gwen.
That's right. Yeah, I know.
Wasn't that like supposed to stop him from transforming? Or
I know. Yeah.
But he gets caught in a bear trap, and then he reverts to human, which those things are spring loaded. So even if it's, let's say your leg is like the Hulk, and it goes, it bites your leg or whatever, it snaps on your leg, but then he turns back to Bruce Banner. Wouldn't the pressure of the teeth still continue through and just, trash his human leg?
See, that's what I thought too. And actually, my first thought was, okay, he gets caught by the bear trap. Wouldn't he bleed a lot?
Right.
And there was literally nothing on his leg.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. All right. Must have skin of steel. I don't know.
He could still be injured. He just can't be killed by it.
Right.
But then, of course, as we kind of said in the synopsis, he ends rather tragically, where his dad comes in and basically, cracks him on the head with the silver cane. Which I love the irony of that.
Oh yeah,
that's just so cool. It's such a great concept. That's one of the things I think that makes this movie so cool. Is that whole, not really a twist at the end, but just that whole irony at the end of the film.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Well, and the other thing about the ending too is Claude Rains' reaction to when he realized he killed his son.
Yes.
I mean, there's something that's and one of the things that you notice is that he doesn't scream, he doesn't yell. He's very subdued. He's very subtle. I thought that was a really good choice.
Yeah. It does end rather quickly though.
Yeah, it does. Well, and one other thing I want to point out too is, I don't know if you noticed it, but during his second transformation, actually, well, because there's only 2 transformations in the whole movie, which a little weird, but whatever.
Yeah.
In his second transformation, when he's walking back into the woods, did you notice that they reused a shot that they used for the first transformation, like a shot of his legs walking? I'm like, wait a minute, we just saw that shot.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't notice that. But I think I did notice. Wasn't he, when he was tied to the chair, he had a tank top shirt on, and then when he's the Wolfman, he's got a full,
he's got a full blown long sleeve shirt.
Yeah, buttoned down.
Buttoned down. Yeah. Exactly. I did notice that. Yeah. It's I guess the wolf change comes with a change of clothes.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, the Incredible Hulk suddenly had purple pants, so there you go.
Right. It's got to be that they realized, oh crap, we only have enough budget to do makeup on his hands and face.
Right.
So we got to give him the full shirt.
Got to give him the full shirt. Yep.
But he's not wearing that in the other scene. Shh, nobody will notice.
Except for 2 guys on a podcast in 2022.
Right. That is one thing I always did pick up on as a kid. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened there? Oh, well. But then it's funny, though, because in the end, it just goes to the end, pretty much.
Yeah.
You don't get a chance to digest what happened. You don't get to see Claude Rains' full reaction, his devastation at what he had done. Although, part of me thinks you almost didn't need to see that. You could really, just like you said, just based on his performance there, you could see where he was going with that.
Yeah, no, his reaction alone just said enough.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny though, we do see that because you had mentioned this last time. I forget which movie it was that it just sort of seemed to end abruptly. I think it was Son of Frankenstein, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was that. Yeah, actually, I found that quite a few of these movies they end pretty abruptly. I've noticed.
Yeah, and I noticed that on our other show, The East Meets the West, where we did the spaghetti westerns, and more particularly the Shaw Brothers kung fu films. It'll just be like, oh, final fight, quick, bad guy's dead, the end. Oh man!
Well, again, you also have to factor in too that these movies, the majority of these movies are just a little over an hour long. So they probably figured, okay, we have 7 reels to get this movie showed. So 7 reels, all this has to. So trying to cram that much into 70 minutes. I mean that's insane.
Yeah, that's true, and and they were also made to be on double features. So yeah,
Right,
time was a
exactly.
factor.
Right.
So Chris, final thoughts on The Wolfman from 1941.
One of my all time favorites of this series for sure. For me, it's right up there with the ones I do love. Frankenstein, Invisible Man. Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
I agree. It is also one of my all-time favorites, and I love everything about this movie. I just found that even more so this time around. It's just exciting and thrilling and fast-paced. The music, of course, is great and iconic. Chaney, the whole cast is just awesome in this, and it's pretty close to being a perfect film. We did point out a few of the flaws, but I highly recommend this, and I think this is a great one to introduce people to the classics. I think we had mentioned you could do Frankenstein or The Invisible Man, but this is right up there with one that if someone's never seen them, show it to them and they'll really be hooked.
Yeah, no, I feel like this movie is like it's one of those movies where you hear the term Universal monster movie, you either think of Dracula, Frankenstein, or the Wolfman. It's always like those 3. I feel like.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, folks, so we're going to take a break, and next up when we return is going to be The Ghost of Frankenstein from 1942.
Prepare for a spine-tingling, nerve-shattering podcast featuring all your favorite monsters. You won't believe your ears when you listen to Monster Kid Radio. Hear your host, Derek M. Cook, and his ever-rotating stable of guests discuss your favorite classic and sometimes not-so-classic monster movies. Subscribe to Monster Kid Radio through iTunes or Stitcher, or visit monsterkidradio.net before the next weekly episode of Monster Kid Radio. Go through the archives for interviews with Sarah Karloff, Victoria Price, and Joel Hodgson. Listen to discussions about movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Island of Terror, and King Kong. And don't forget convention coverage from Monster Bash and the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. Classic monsters, modern talk, and the head of Rondo Hatton, only on Monster Kid Radio.
Hello, this is Rod Barnett. I'm the host of The Bloody Pit, the podcast that examines films from across the decades. On The Bloody Pit, we have several ongoing series of shows within the show focused on specific things in genre cinema that I and my co-hosts find fascinating. There's a long-running series focused on Italian maestro Antonio Margheriti's films from the 1960s all the way up through 1990. There's an on-again, off-again series focused on 1970s science fiction films. There's an in-depth look at the Western movies that William Castle made before he struck out on his own and became the horror auteur that we know and love. A look at the classic Coffin Joe films from Brazil. And our long-term project to look at every Universal horror film made in the 1940s. That's a long project, people. It's going to take us a long time. Sprinkled in amongst those are various other episodes focused on other stranger areas of cinema, like Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento, and even some obscure British crime films from time to time. So join me and my rotating crew of co-hosts as we examine the stranger side of cinema through an exploitation lens. Except when we don't. Yeah, you never really know exactly what to expect on The Bloody Pit. So join me for The Bloody Pit.
Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital?
Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast.
Okay, and we're back, and now we are going to discuss the film Ghost of Frankenstein from 1942.
There's a curse on our village. The curse of Frankenstein.
Father was Frankenstein, that your mother was the lightning.
The most dreaded creation of man, the monster of Frankenstein, stalks again. Here is drama completely strange, full of weird suspense. With this great cast, Sir Cedric Hardwicke, Lionel Atwill, Ralph Bellamy, Bela Lugosi, Evelyn Ankers, Lon Chaney, in the gripping tale of a monster the tomb cannot engulf, chains cannot hold.
Going to give him life?
Yes. Not for the purposes that you think, Igor. I'm giving him another brain.
That's your shot, husband? Yes, yes.
The residents of the village of Frankenstein feel that they're under a curse and blame all their troubles on Frankenstein's monster. The mayor allows them to destroy Frankenstein's castle. Igor finds the monster released from his sulfuric tomb by the explosions. The exposure to the sulfur weakened yet preserved the monster. Igor and the monster flee the castle, and the monster is struck by a bolt of lightning. Igor decides to find Ludwig, the second son of Henry Frankenstein, to help the monster regain his strength. Ludwig Frankenstein is a doctor who, along with his assistants Dr. Kittering and Dr. Theodore Baumer, has successful practice in Vassiria. Baumer was formerly Ludwig's teacher, but is now his envious assistant. Igor and the monster arrive in Vassiria, where the monster befriends a young girl. The monster carries her onto a roof to retrieve her ball, killing two villagers who attempt to intervene. After the young girl asks the monster to bring her back down, the monster returns the girl to her father, her husband, and is immediately captured by police. The town prosecutor, Eric Ernest, comes to Ludwig and asks him to examine the giant they have captured. Igor then visits Ludwig and informs him that the giant is the monster. Igor implores Ludwig to heal the monster's body and brain. Ludwig refuses, but Igor threatens to reveal Ludwig's ancestry to the villagers. At the police station, the monster is restrained with chains as a hearing is conducted to investigate the murder of the villagers. When Ludwig denies recognizing the monster, it breaks free in a fit of rage and is led away by Igor. Elsa, Ludwig's daughter, finds Frankenstein's journals and learns the story of the monster. She sees Igor and the monster in the window after breaking into Ludwig's laboratory, and the monster kills Dr. Kittering. The monster grabs Elsa, but Ludwig is able to subdue him with knockout gas. Ludwig is examining the monster when it awakens and tries to kill him. Ludwig tranquilizes the monster, then tries to enlist Baumer's aid in dissecting him. Baumer refuses, claiming it would be murder. While studying his family's journals, Ludwig is visited by the ghost of his father, Henry Frankenstein. The spirit implores him to supply the monster with a good brain. Ludwig calls in Baumer and Igor and tells them that he plans to put Dr. Kittering's brain into the monster's skull. Igor protests and asks Ludwig to use his brain, but Ludwig refuses because Igor's sinister nature. Elsa begs Ludwig to stop his experiments, but he chooses to operate on the monster as soon as possible. Igor tells Bomber that he should not be subordinate to Ludwig. Igor promises to help the disgraced doctor if he agrees to put Igor's brain into the monster. The police soon arrive at Ludwig's house, searching for the monster. They find the secret room, but Igor and the monster have fled. The monster abducts the young girl from her home and returns with her in his arms to Ludwig's chateau. The monster conveys his desire for her brain to be placed in his head. The young girl does not want to lose her brain, and the monster reluctantly gives her to Elsa. Ludwig then performs the surgery, not knowing that Balmer has replaced Kittering's brain with Igor's. In the village, her husband rouses his neighbors by telling them his daughter has been captured by the monster and that Ludwig is harboring it. Ludwig shows the monster to Eric, but when the monster rises, Ludwig is shocked to hear that it has Igor's voice. The villagers storm the chateau, and the Igor monster decides to have Balmer fill the house with gas to kill them. Ludwig tries to stop him, but the Igor monster repels and attacks and mortally wounds Ludwig. The Igor monster suddenly goes blind. The wounded Ludwig explains that the blindness is a result of the incompatibility between the blood types of Igor and the monster. Feeling betrayed, the Igor monster then throws Balmer onto the apparatus, electrocuting him, and inadvertently sets fire to the chateau. The Igor monster becomes trapped in the burning chateau while Eric and Elsa escape, walking into the sunrise. So, what was your thoughts on this one?
Well, this is another one of my favorites. I've probably seen this, House of Frankenstein, and The Wolfman, and maybe Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman the most of all the Universal classics. I love how this transitions from Igor being the hunchback assistant to the monster into the next film that we're going to talk about, where Lugosi plays the monster instead of Igor. So you could almost justify why that happens. But, this isn't quite a monster mashup film, but I just thought it was fun. And, like I said, this is just one of those movies that I've seen quite a few times over the years.
Yeah, this is my first time seeing it. I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed this one. I thought it was just going to be kind of like how we discussed with the Mummy movies, how the sequels slowly got worse and worse, and how, with Invisible Man, there were a couple sequels that were either not as good, they were okay, and Dracula, sort of the same thing. This is one of the few series of movies that we discussed where so far all the movies have held up pretty well. I'm especially surprised by this one because I actually really enjoyed this one a lot.
Oh, yeah. This one is really fun. I think that's part of why probably when I was younger I watched it quite a bit, because this next stretch of movies are much different than those god-awful Mummy sequels.
yeah, it's unfortunate but true. But to your point, I think one of the best things about this movie is how much Igor is given to do here. I mean, he's taken from being a side character to pretty much a main character, which I think is great.
Yeah, and I love that his character carries over from Son of Frankenstein.
Yeah, for sure. But it's also the interesting story of what happens when the assistant becomes power hungry, which I don't think we've seen a lot of in these sort of mad scientist movies.
Right, exactly. And Lugosi puts on a great performance. It's so fun to see him in a full-on, supporting character role.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Or, almost a main character in this, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
So this film was directed by Earl C. Kenton, who also directed House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, which we already covered, as well as a ton of other films, including a few Abbott and Costello movies. I thought the directing here was solid.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Not quite so atmospheric as the Wolfman say, but
right.
It almost didn't need it. I mean, I suppose you could have. It's a horror movie,
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like the directing here was pretty adequate, if not, above average. I thought it was a lot of fun. It moved really well.
Yeah, the pacing was very good in this one, and I thought it was smartly written. It's like,
yeah,
I mean, try to figure out the logic. So this guy is Wolf's brother then, because he's the second son.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting, trying to figure out the continuity there, because the continuity gets a little, not continuity, but the family gets a little bit skewed, especially when we get to the next film. But
right.
Now, the movie was written by a couple guys, Scott Darling, who wrote over 206 films, and the ones that stood out to me, or actually the one that stands out to me, is he wrote Sherlock Holmes and the Secret Weapon, which is one of those Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce movies where they play Holmes and Watson. And the other guy who I guess came up with the original story is Eric Taylor, and he's written quite a few of those Ellery Queen movies that Ralph Bellamy starred in that we talked about earlier. So I thought that was interesting. And of course, we've got Lon Chaney Jr. back as this time he's playing the monster, the Frankenstein monster. So we've already talked about him, but Cedric Hardwicke, Sir Cedric Hardwicke played Dr. Ludwig Frankenstein, and he's the narrator in War of the Worlds. If you recall, at the beginning and the end, he was also in the Ten Commandments, Suspicion, which I think is a Hitchcock film, right?
It is, yep. One of the best ones, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, okay. And then Around the World in 80 Days. And we've already talked about him in The Invisible Man Returns and The Invisible Agent. And I may have said this before in the show, but as a kid, I always confused him with Lionel Atwill.
Like, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, especially in this movie. I remember watching it probably maybe the first or second time. I'm like, wait a minute, now which guy is which?
Right.
So I thought he did a great performance here.
I tell you, his performance really... for me, it was the best performance in the movie, and there were a lot of great performances in this movie.
Yeah, he definitely. I liked the whole, he wants nothing to do with it. He's even changed his name, or doesn't really change his name, but for whatever reason, he doesn't want the people to know that he's, connected to the monster. But then he sees the monster, and he's like, well, actually, I could do something pretty cool with it,
Yeah, so that's where Mel Brooks got the idea of the. Of the son that didn't want to be associated.
Right, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Well, even Wolf didn't want to really, right? He didn't want to be associated.
That's right. Yeah.
So, the two of them, the brothers. We've got Ralph Bellamy back, who plays Eric Ernst. Lionel Atwill is Dr. Theodore Bomer. Bela Lugosi, as we mentioned, plays Igor, which he just gives a great performance here.
Yeah.
Evelyn Ankers, who we saw in The Wolfman as Gwen, she plays Elsa Frankenstein. Now, would you guess then that the reason his daughter is named Elsa is he named her after his brother's wife?
No, I had no idea.
Oh, okay. I'm just thinking because that was Wolf's wife's name. Say that's
okay.
Was Elsa.
Okay.
Who was also Elsa Lanchester, of course, played the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Janet Angallo played the little girl whose name we couldn't really pronounce, so we didn't say it.
You can't pronounce the name, yeah.
Cloestine Hussman, I guess.
Cloestine Hussman, yeah.
I just skipped over it when I was reading it, and
yeah.
I noticed, by the way, in the summary that I just cut and pasted the summary from online, and it spelled Visaria like 3 different ways.
Really?
Yeah. One V-I, V-A, and I don't know if it was a third one, but...
Huh.
But this girl, she's grown up now. I think she's since passed away, but I think a year or two ago she was on Gilbert Gottfried's podcast.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and she remembered it, too. She remembered the movie, making the movie.
Wow, that's something to listen to.
And then we've got quite a few others in the cast that we don't really need to go over, except, of course, Dwight Fry plays one of the villagers, who folks you may remember as Renfield. And didn't we see him? He was like a villager in one of the Invisible Man movies or something.
I think he was, yeah.
It might have been Invisible, the one with Vincent Price, so Returns, I think.
Yes, Returns, yeah.
So the villagers, of course, want to blow up Castle Frankenstein, but I like that whole scene with Igor, knocking those boulders off the parapet.
Sorry, say again?
I said I like the scene where they go to attack the castle and Igor's on top of the parapet and he's knocking those giant cinder blocks off.
Yeah, I like that too, But here's the weird thing: didn't Igor die in the last movie?
He got shot 5 times, I think.
Because I'm like, wait a minute, how is he alive?
I don't know.
Oh, he's Igor. There's no explanation.
I wrote in my notes, Igor is alive, with a couple exclamation points.
He's alive.
It's difficult. I mean, they try to hang him, and that didn't take. So
that's true. Yeah.
Maybe he's secretly who's the Russian guy there? Oh my God, I should know this. Christopher Lee played him. Remember that Russian?
Oh, yes. I think I know what you're talking
They
about.
hung him, they poisoned him, they tied him up and threw him in the water.
Right.
Rasputin.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah. That maybe he's Rasputin. But I thought it was cool, though, that the monster was preserved in the sulfur pit that he fell from. The sulfur is good for your skin. I mean, it has saved you. But, of course, the castle gets flattened when they bomb it. So Frankenstein's monster and Igor go off to Visaria, which is where Ludwig lives. And we're going to see that town again in the next movie that we're going to talk about. And as you said, the monster befriends the little girl. I thought it was kind of cool because I felt like instead of killing her and tossing her around or whatever, he befriends her, which you and I had been talking about the growth of the Frankenstein monster as a character.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not only does it harken back to the original movie with the girl by the water, but this almost like strengthens that in a way, almost like he's learned from what happened last time, and it's like there's like a weird evolution there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just cool. I like that. It's like I almost think the writers did it unconsciously because they weren't really paying a whole heck of a lot of attention to continuity.
Yeah, no, but just before that scene happens, there's a scene with Igor and with the monster, and there's this one line that Igor says to the monster that I wrote it down because I loved it. It was, "Frankenstein was your father, your mother was the lightning." I just thought that was just absolutely such a beautiful line.
Yeah, very, very poetic. I like that.
Yeah, very poetic and very like just something about that I thought was just like really intelligent writing.
And that scene too, we kind of skipped over, but where he pulls him out of the sulfur, and then he's standing out in the field getting struck by lightning, and he's recharging from that. And at first Igor's like, no, 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 and then he sees, the lightning is your mother. That was a great scene.
Yeah, no, it was a great scene. It was, I think there is where Bela Lugosi really shined in his character.
Yes.
Along with the ending, which we'll get to, but yeah.
Yeah. I also like the scene where obviously the monster is, I guess he's weak, that's why he has to go to Frankenstein, but the lightning recharges him enough that he breaks the chains, which I thought was a great scene.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
They've got the villages, a lot of angry villages in these movies.
They are.
And of course, Igor's got that demented clarinet again, but
of course
he does use it to soothe the monster. I guess now that you've brought it up, in Young Frankenstein, it was Igor used the violin, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, he used the violin.
Yeah. That's funny because now I can hear that tune in my head.
Well, isn't that when they were also doing that dance, him and Gene Wilder, "If You're Blue and You Don't Know Where to Go"?
Yeah, but was there a violin in that?
I can't remember if it was that scene or if it was early. I can't remember now.
It was. I just remember Marty Feldman using it like up on the castle, trying to call the monster back.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. I'm getting them mixed up with the where they're dancing on the stage.
Right. "Putting on the Ritz" was the song.
"Put on the Ritz," yeah. Thank you.
I love that song, and there's an '80s version of that was really popular by a band called Taco. It's probably the one you've heard. You may have heard it.
Probably.
And then, did you notice that the daughter's dress, the way the pattern is, it looks like there's these two, like the top half is a light color and the bottom half is black, but
I know what you're going to say.
It looks like two hands, like one on each of her boobs.
It's...
my wife
true.
My wife goes, why does her dress have hands on her boobs?
That's funny. That's true.
I wonder if like the designer did that on purpose to like sort of give the finger to the code or something.
Right.
We can't show real hands, so we'll make her dress. Oh no, it's the pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
But then her father locks the door on her and the monster, and he runs away. And you're like, did you think like, oh my God, he's just gonna leave them?
Yeah, I know. Well, did you notice too, like how when he goes to bring her up to get her ball, he knocks a villager down.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
I couldn't help but laugh because it just looked like such a bad stunt.
Yeah. He probably killed that guy too, doing that.
Probably, yeah. But like but whoever the stunt person was, or the actor, just like he pushes him, he does like this weird like flip. I'm like, okay, yeah, that doesn't look right.
Yeah. And now that I think about it, there's something about I want to say everyone's performance in this was great, but I don't know. I felt like Chaney was kind of phoning it in. He looked constipated through the whole movie.
I mean, well, you could probably excuse it. He was playing a kind of an emotionless monster, but
Yeah.
But no, it's true. I do see your point there.
Like I remember the look he's on his face when he's knocking that guy off, and he's just kind of grimacing. And
Yeah.
it's like he didn't. I don't know. I felt like he had more pathos when he played the mummy. One of those times we talked about.
I agree. Yeah.
You could see him emoting through the makeup, but in this, he doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot of that. But he's still Chaney, so you got to love him anyways.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But of course, Dr. Frankenstein happens to have a button that he pushes, or a dial, or something, or switch, and he's got knockout gas in his house. That because he's safely behind one door, everybody else gets knocked out. So,
when couldn't it happen where he accidentally knocks out himself?
Yeah, well,
it's like why have that in your own laboratory?
I know, kidding. That's what I was gonna say. It's like, wait a minute, and we'll come back to that again because that does come into play.
It does come back late. Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it's such an odd choice. Why? Why would you?
Yeah. It was a really odd choice.
But now, getting into the doctors, I did like the moral dilemma where. Ludwig was going to dissect the creature, and Lionel Atwill's character was like, that would be murder.
Right.
And he's like, well, he's not human, So I thought that was kind of a cool little morality discussion there. Yeah,
I like that. I also like that aspect. I like how throughout the story, particularly when the monster is in court, and he's more exposed to the people in the town. And there's a moral dilemma there too. It's like, is he a human being? Is he not? That part of it too, I thought was nicely explored.
Yeah, exactly. I did like that. Would have liked a little bit more of that in this movie, but I think it would have slowed the pacing down probably.
Yeah, I agree.
Then, of course, Henry Frankenstein, who is not Cullen Clive, appears and tells him to use another brain. And so, Ludwig decides to use the dead doctor's brain, the doctor that the monster just walked in and killed the guy right off the bat.
Right. We also have to mention this is where the title finally comes into play because I'm watching. I'm thinking, wait a minute. I'm thinking, wait a minute. Why is this called Ghost of Frankenstein? Wait, it's like I'm just like, where's the ghost? That when it appears, I'm like, oh, that's why.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that. That's hilarious.
Well, because the whole time I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, wait a minute, Ghost of what? Like, I'm like,
that's so
because
funny.
And I didn't even think of it. And I'm thinking, did the title get it wrong? Did they refer to the monster as Frankenstein? And somehow this version of the monster is a ghost because he's resurrected now? Like, I got really confused by that.
That's awesome. That's a great catch, dude. I mean, all my 51 years on this planet, I never noticed that in this movie. And I mean, I saw the ghost, but I never put the connection together. I think part of it is because you have other movies like The Mummy's Ghost, which that has nothing to do with the film. So
right,
I just kind of ignored it. Oh, that's the title.
Just
of
kind
the
of
film.
accepted it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, my other thought was, did they like run out of titles? And they figured, okay, well, this will do.
Well, we've used Bride, we've used Son. What else can we use?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What else can we do?
That's hilarious. But I do like
soon we have to do House. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Then Son of House and then
that's right, Son of House.
Bride of the House.
Bride of the House. Bride of the Ghost.
Yeah.
Ghost of the House. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ghost Bride.
Of the House. You could do a funny parody movie where it's like the Ghost of the House of the Bride of Frankenstein.
That's right.
I do like the fact that Igor wants his brain to go into the monster, which is his explanation I thought was really interesting because he's like, well,
yeah,
I've got 5 bullets still stuck in me, and he's humongous, and we could be together forever.
Well, and I also liked too how he says that the reason he wants to be together with him is because they're friends. I'm just like, there's something kind of endearing about that, even though he's supposed to be a villain in this thing.
Yes, yeah. He's not. I guess he's a villain. I almost feel like Igor's just more of this self-serving dude who's out for himself. However,
Yeah.
he has this, brotherly love for the creatures, so that's kind of his soft spot.
Yeah.
Because basically he tries to keep to himself, and he's always the one getting attacked and having to defend himself against angry villagers.
Yeah. Well, and I guess in a way you could argue that that Igor is, I guess in a way he's in some way a monster himself in how he looks and how he's misunderstood.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. He does have a little bit of growth of character when he befriends in the last movie when he befriends the monster.
True. Yeah.
A bit of a story arc there. I thought it was interesting too, though, as the cops bust into the castle to search the place, and there's no Igor, no monster. But why didn't they find the dead doctor's body?
Yeah, right. I know.
Oh man! And then the monster goes and takes the little girl from her room and accidentally sets the house on fire. And then they come in. I think I don't know where they were talking about it, but they were talking about it, and they're like, "It's been 2 weeks. We need to start looking for her." Something to that effect. Like they waited 2 weeks.
Well, and also that scene is like, how did the monster know where she lived to go pick her up?
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that.
I mean, because when he went to go grab the ball, he wasn't. I mean, the movie doesn't indicate if he's like near where she lived. But so I'm like, okay, well, how did he know that?
And he's so tall, he's got to bend over to get into the doorway.
Right, right.
Oh man, and yeah, that's a good point. It's not like he's Michael Myers where he can home in on her or anything.
Yeah, it's like what did he do? Did he look her up in the yellow pages? Did he Google her? Like,
right. So 2 weeks later, the villagers get angry and they decide to storm the castle. They kind of figure out that that's got to be where the girl is. And meanwhile, Igor manages to. I like this little subplot here where Igor's talking to Lionel Atwill's character and basically convinces him that if you use my brain instead of Dr. Boehmer's, we could be a force to be reckoned with in the world. I'll make you powerful.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of cool in the way he really does mull it over, but then decides to go for it.
Yeah, for sure. And and the reveal when it finally happens is really nice.
Yeah. I am Igor. Even though obviously his voice was dubbed over, but it worked.
Yeah, no, and you know something I have to say, when it first happened, I literally had an audible "oh shit" moment because I was like, and that's one of the few times when it's actually happened to me while watching a movie alone, where I was like, "oh shit."
That's awesome.
Because I did not expect that, but yes, I mean the voice was not well dubbed. I mean you could tell it was dubbed, but man, that reveal just works really well.
It does. I would almost swear from Chaney's lip work that he was trying to mimic Lugosi's voice when he was doing that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But that was just so well done, but then the whole the monster's blinded because the blood type.
Oh my god!
Because science.
Yeah, I couldn't help but just start laughing. I was like, huh?
Right.
Wait a minute, what?
Why? I don't understand what their thinking was behind that.
I know.
I really don't, because then it sets him up, because the blindness kind of carries over into the rest of the times that we'll see Frankenstein in the movies, and I just don't understand why it couldn't the castle just have collapsed on all of them, and then that was it,
Right. Or end another fire, which it does.
Right. I was thinking of you when I saw that. I'm like, oh, it ended another fire.
Yeah, another fire.
So, one thing I think is awesome is this is your first time watching it. So, what are your final thoughts on the Ghost of Frankenstein?
You know what? I really enjoyed this one. I think it's one of the few sequels we've seen this whole series that we've been doing where it's actually on par with the rest of the movies in the series. Like I could actually watch Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, and this one, and like not be bored by them or not think, oh, it's that next one that's coming that I don't like. Oh, should I skip it? Like they're all enjoyable, all on the same level.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I love this one too. Probably not as much as some of the others, but I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but when I was in my late teens, they released these on VHS. So I know I grabbed this one because I still have it, as well as I miswrote in my notes the same movie. But I bought this one. I got Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman and a bunch of others, and I got all the Creature from the Black Lagoon movies. So, that was a great time when they all came out on VHS. And I didn't actually get, I don't think I have Dracula or Frankenstein on VHS. I might, but this would explain, though, why I saw them so much, because I had them readily available,
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad that they're getting such good treatment on home video. With all the with the legacy collections. After watching these, I went ahead and I actually bought the legacy collection of Frankenstein with
awesome.
all 8 movies on there.
Nice.
I thought, so that's really cool to have.
Yeah, I have all the legacy collections. I love those. Although I did watch, when we just discussed the Wolfman, I did watch the Svengoolie version of that.
Did you?
Yeah,
Nice.
I just love Svengoolie.
Yeah.
But I definitely recommend this one. I don't recommend this one as one that you should introduce people to these movies.
Yeah.
It's sort of like in the middle of these storylines.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wouldn't put this one as like the high up there, but I mean, I would put it as one you can watch down the line as you get introduced.
Yeah,
because it's a fun movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I did want to say, I think when I sent you you and I were going over the list, and I sent you the names of the films, I put this one first, and then the Wolfman, and then Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. But when I looked at them, they weren't in chronological order. So chronologically, Wolfman came out first, and then this one came out, and then Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. So it was like 1941, 42, and 43. So I figured it made more sense because we've been doing everything chronologically,
right,
in terms of release date.
Exactly.
Okay, folks, so we are going to take another break here, and when we come back, we are going to wrap things up with the classic monster mash, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman from 1943.
Shark Bites Podcast. It's the greatest show in history. From the Dorkening Network, hosted by a nerd who's named Patsy. From movie reviews to tips on surviving the coronavirus, Shark Bites has it all. Follow us on Facebook and suggest topics at sharkbitespod@gmail.com. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Hi, this is Re-Gor, host of Then Is Now podcast and The East Meets the West. I just wanted to say thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers. We appreciate your support as we grow the audience for our shows. You can find our links to our Patreon page as well as our TeePublic page at havenpodcasts.com. With Patreon, you'll get a lot of exclusive stuff, including our monthly pop culture newsletter, cool gifts, discounts for TeePublic, and our special exclusive show, Then Is Now Filmmakers series, in which we interview directors, producers, writers, composers, special effects guys, basically anybody who works behind the scenes in film and television, and get their insights into the process of creating films and TV shows. Also at our TeePublic page, you'll find cool merch that you can get or even give to others as gifts. You can find those links at our website, or you can go directly to tpublic.com/stores/havenpodcasts and patreon.com/thenisnowpodcast. Enjoy!
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
he doesn't understand. There's a curse upon me. I change into a wolf.
Listen to me, Peggy. I saw my father become obsessed by his power. He died a horrible death.
There's no need for us all to storm after her. She'll come in if I ask her.
Why should we treat her so fancy? She's a Frankenstein.
"4 years after the events of The Wolfman and the Ghost of Frankenstein, two men break into the Talbot family crypt on the night of a full moon to open the grave of Larry Talbot, seeking jewelry that was buried with him. During the robbery, the thieves remove the wolfbane buried with Talbot, awakening him from death by the full moon shining on his uncovered body. Talbot reflexively grasps the arm of the grave robber with a fur-covered hand as the other thief flees. Talbot is found by the police in Cardiff later that night with a vicious head wound administered by his father at the end of The Wolfman, and taken to a hospital where he is treated by Dr. Mannering. Talbot slowly comes to understand his situation, but during the full moon, he transforms into the Wolfman and kills a police constable. The next morning, Mannering realizes his patient had been roaming about and tries to reason with him. Though unable to accept Talbot's explanation of his curse, Dr. Mannering allows Inspector Owen to question Talbot, who becomes violently irate, then is overcome by orderlies and bound to his bed with leather straps. Not believing his story of being a werewolf, the doctor and detective travel to the village of Llanwelly to investigate Talbot and his story. While they are away, Talbot escapes from the hospital by biting through the restraints with his teeth. Seeking cure for the curse that causes him to transform into a werewolf with every full moon, Talbot leaves Wales and seeks the gypsy woman Maliva, who has hearsay knowledge of Dr. Frankenstein, and opines that he may be able to help Talbot. Together they travel to the village of Visaria, where Talbot hopes to find the notes of Dr. Frankenstein in the remains of his estate and permanently end his own life through scientific means. The townsfolk want no part of them or their desire to meet with the deceased Frankenstein, rudely ordering them to leave. An upset Talbot transforms into the Wolfman and kills a young woman, causing the villagers of Visaria to raise a mob to chase him down. Fleeing toward the ruins of the Frankenstein castle, Talbot falls through the burned-out flooring and into the frozen cellars below. Talbot recovers from his animal state and wanders around, discovering Frankenstein's monster, trapped within an icy chamber that has a light in it. Using a stone, Talbot breaks the ice and helps pull the now-revived creature free. Finding that the monster is unable to locate the notes of the long-dead doctor, Talbot poses as a potential buyer of the Frankenstein estate in order to seek out Baron Elsa Frankenstein, the daughter of Frankenstein, hoping she knows their hiding place. She declines to assist Talbot, but the pair are invited to the Festival of the New Wine by the Burgomaster. During the festival, a performance of the life-affirming folk song "Farola, Farole" enrages Talbot as Dr. Mannering arrives. The doctor, having followed him across Europe, attempts to persuade Talbot to return to Wales before he has another spell. Talbot refuses to go with Mannering, and the monster crashes the festival. With the monster revealed, Elsa and Mannering agree to help the villagers rid themselves of Frankenstein's curse forever. The following morning, the couple, with Maliva in tow, meet with Talbot and the monster at the ruins. Mannering is instantly fascinated by the monster from a scientific perspective. The Baroness gives the notes to Talbot and the doctor. Mannering studies the notes and learns how to drain all life from both Talbot and the monster, believing the laboratory can be repaired for the task. In the meantime, the villagers are dismayed to see crates of scientific instruments arriving for Dr. Mannering. Ignorant of Mannering's plan to cure Talbot, the villagers fear another return of the Frankenstein monster, and they grow suspicious. Vazek, the innkeeper, details a plan to destroy the dam overlooking the Frankenstein estate with dynamite and drown all within, in the hopes that this will put a final end to the attacks from both the Frankenstein monster and the Wolfman. The burgomaster dismisses the idea as nothing but a drunken notion, but Vazek is determined and puts his plan into action. Meanwhile, Dr. Mannering begins his experimental procedure of using electricity to drain the life force from both Talbot and the monster. But Mannering's scientific curiosity to see the monster at full strength overwhelms his logic, and to Elsa's horror, he decides to alter the machines and fully revive the monster. The experiment coincides on the night of a full moon, and Talbot transforms yet again as the monster regains his strength and eyesight. Both escape their restraints. The monster begins to carry Elsa away, but the Wolfman attacks him, and she escapes from the castle with Mannering. The Wolfman and the monster then engage in a fight until they are both swept away in the flood that results when Vazek dynamites the dam. Whew. So, Chris, when did you first see this?
This was also my first time seeing this one, and I liked this one. Didn't love this one, but I did enjoy it. It was fun.
Really, I'm surprised because this was always one of my favorites. I freaking love this movie. Even this time around, I loved it more so.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a lot of fun. It's good. I don't know, for some reason it just didn't leave that much of an impression on me as like some of the other ones. I think I was expecting more interaction between the monster and the Wolfman rather than just the last 5 minutes of it. But I mean, it was still, enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah, that is one disappointment, is that the final fight is in the last 5 minutes of the movie. But I just thought the build-up was really good. I thought the acting was great.
Yeah.
I liked Talbot's journey in this movie. Now, one thing I was confused at, and especially reading the synopsis here, I did not think this was the same Elsa from the last movie.
I did not even pick up on that, no.
Yeah, so...
Interesting.
I don't think it is, because this one had a German accent.
Oh.
The other one didn't. I assumed this one was probably the daughter of Wolf.
Yeah.
Not Ludwig.
Right.
It gets confusing. Yet she knew where the secret room was in this castle. So maybe, I don't know, maybe she went and visited her uncle or something.
Right.
Well, we'll just chalk it up as another continuity victim.
I guess so.
So this movie was directed by Roy William Neal, who also directed The Spider-Woman and The Scarlet Claw, as well as a couple of Sherlock Holmes films, including one that we mentioned, Sherlock Holmes and the Secret Weapon. Once again, written by Kurt Siodmak, which I kind of feel like did he just get drunk and writing the last, third of the film?
Well, I think that's part of what my problem, like the part of what my issue was. I was like, it seems like someone was drunk when they were writing the last half of this movie.
This man needs to be held accountable for this sort of thing.
Right.
And that was another thing that confused me. I was trying to figure out, and the synopsis sort of clarified it for me, which I always thought he was taking Talbot's energy, and putting it into the monster.
That's what I thought it was too. But it wasn't until he actually said that he wanted to die, then I was like, oh, so he doesn't want to transfer energy. He wants to die.
Right, but wouldn't... yeah. But still, that would have still killed Talbot. He was taking their energy out.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Then he reverses the polarity, and it puts the energy into both of them. Okay.
I was confused too. That's why I was like, wait a minute. I was confused, about that, because like I heard that part of it, but then when he said he actually wanted to die and not so much transfer his energy, I was like, wait a minute.
Right.
So that left me a little bit confused.
Yeah, that was a little weird. So we've got Ilona Massey here, who played the Baroness Elsa Frankenstein. And she was in real life, she was a strong anti-communist. She even testified on some of the atrocities committed by the Soviets against the Hungarian people.
Oh, wow.
In front of like a U.S. court or something.
Yeah.
And we did talk about her before. She was in Invisible Agent. Remember, she was sort of the main character.
Yes.
Yeah. He was messing with the Germans.
That's right, yeah.
We've got Patrick Knowles back. This time around, he plays Dr. Frank Mannering. Lionel Atwill plays the mayor. Bela Lugosi is the monster this time, which makes sense because he has Igor's brain.
Right.
Maria Ospinskaya reprises her role as Maliva, the gypsy woman. A guy named Dennis Hoey plays Police Inspector Owen. He was in quite a few Sherlock Holmes movies with Basil Rathbone, which now that I did that research, I realized, oh yeah, I have seen that guy in a bunch of stuff. And then a handful of other, then we've got a handful of other actors, but another one that stands out is, of course, Chris.
Dwight Frye.
Yeah, that's right. Renfield again.
Renfield again. Yeah.
So that guy had a steady career, and then I think, didn't we say he went into airplane construction or something after his acting career?
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. Yeah. Interesting turn of events.
Yeah. Now, I think that, and I really didn't think about this till I sat down to put my notes together, but I feel like this movie might have contributed to people erroneously referring to the monster as Frankenstein, because it's titled Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Well, I guess you could say it was Elsa Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. She meets him, she doesn't fight him.
Right. Yeah.
Huh. And Lugosi as the monster here, I thought was good. This is sort of where we get the trope of the monster walking with his outstretched arms because he's blind.
Yeah. Right.
And it makes sense that Lugosi would play him. If you want to talk continuity, well, he was Re-Gor in the last movie. Maybe his face somehow.
That's true.
changed.
That's true. Yeah. And just again to bring up something we talked about on the last show. It's funny that. I think people forget that Bela Lugosi did play Frankenstein, this time around, because when people think of him, they know from the Ed Wood movie where he starts shitting on Boris Karloff and how Frankenstein is just all makeup and grunting.
That's right.
But he plays the character here, and and people forget that. I think it's so funny. It's ironic.
Yeah, because Karloff never does that with the arms outstretched.
Yeah, no.
That's awesome.
That's right. Yeah, no, he never did do the arms outstretched. Yeah.
That's funny. So I also hit in my notes here about Elsa again, but I think we've beaten that dead horse. I don't really care anymore whose daughter she was. She's the daughter of Frankenstein. That's all we need to know. But we do have Lionel Atwill again in this one.
Right.
Always good to see him. It's sort of a minor role here. And so the song, which I kind of mentioned in the synopsis, where it goes "Farola, faroli."
Yeah.
What's cool about that? Well, I actually have a funny story that I just thought of. I was showing this to a couple buddies of mine when we were in our early 20s. They had never seen it, and they were like, "What? A musical number in a horror movie?"
Yeah.
But what's funny about that song is there's a horror convention called the Monster Bash, and I think it's every June. It's either Pennsylvania or Virginia, one of those places. And I guess I've never been there, but I'm dying to go someday. But at midnight on the Saturday of the convention, they have a giant get together where everyone's having a party or whatever. All the attendees, and there's a guy who leads the group and sings this song. He might even have an accordion too. I'm not sure.
Oh.
And they, I believe if you go on YouTube and look up Monster Bash, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman song, something like that, you'll find it. And it's pretty cool. It's the whole crowd is into it because we've all seen this movie a zillion times and we know the song lyrics by heart. So that would be something really fun to attend,
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, no, and I actually did like this song in this movie. It worked.
I did too. I think it's catchy.
Yeah.
The guy's overdubbed because then all of a sudden the music just stops. But
right, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah, but it was cool and it was interesting because he's may this couple live forever. And then Talbot loses his shit and he's like, I don't want to live forever.
Yeah.
And they're all like, what the heck?
I mean, you know what? It's easy to call that a strange scene that doesn't belong in this movie, but I don't know. I actually did like that scene.
Yeah, I did too. I think it's kind of a nice break in the
Exactly, yeah.
It's sort of a happy moment because these movies don't tend to have a lot of happy moments.
No, they do not.
Not a lot of comic relief either in these movies.
No, it's true. No, I mean, just finding comic relief in horror movie, it's more commonplace today than it was back then, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. I hadn't really thought about that till this moment, but yeah, good for them for doing that. And plus, there was most movies had a musical number in them if they weren't a full-on musical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not all movies, like film noir didn't, but
Right. Yeah.
you know, there were like even Abbott and Costello movies. They always had like a musical number in there somewhere.
Oh yeah.
But you know, I did like the fact that there was a secret room in the secret room.
Yeah. That was cool.
And of course, she knew where to go at Elsa. So again, begs the question: which daughter is she?
Right.
But then, you know, the thing I love about these movies, especially we saw it with Ludwig in the last one, and now with Dr. Mannering in this one, the scientists that see the monster, at first they're like, no, we'll help you destroy it. And then they're like, wait a minute. He actually made a monster, and they become fascinated by it, and they don't want to kill it. They want to make it live, make it stronger, you know?
Yeah. Right.
Which that sort of mirrors the Henry Frankenstein's obsession in the first two films.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No, I thought that too.
I love Patrick Knowles' line. I can't do it. I can't destroy Frankenstein's creation.
Yeah, I like that line too.
The minus to the minus, and bzz, bzz. Once again, that was a cool set, even though it was tiny.
That was a cool set, and also I have to add too, the sound effects
Yes.
in that scene are they're outstanding.
Yeah. It's like you almost did. I don't think there was any music. It was the sound effects were just overpowering everything when she comes in and she's going Frank, you know. And
but you know something. It's funny you say there's no music because the way the sound effects, either the way that they're edited together or mixed or what have you, it almost sounds like music.
That's true. That's really true. I never thought about that.
There's something kind of. It's not lyrical. It's not. I'm looking for a different word. Not lyrical, but like
rhythmic.
Yes, rhythmic. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because that always like strikes a chord in me when I'm watching this movie, and it's like, oh, here it comes, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, he reverses the polarity as they do in a lot of Star Trek movies, and the monster regains full power. Talbot becomes the Wolfman, and they have a great fight for about 5 minutes.
And that's the whole movie in a nutshell.
Yep,
right
the
there.
end.
The end.
But I did like that one scene, though, where the Wolfman is on top of that giant air conditioner or whatever the hell it was, giant piece of equipment, and the monster throws it, and it's clearly on wires because the weight is, like, distributed improperly because of Talbot's weight.
That's funny.
So it almost looks like it floats through the air. And I knew that was coming, so when I watched it this time around, I put my brain on hold, and I was like, no, he's throwing a piece of equipment, and it worked. It was just like he just picked up that giant thing and chucked it across the room, and Talbot was on top of it, and it just, if you don't think about it too hard, it's really awesome.
Exactly.
Oh, my God. But the castle is gone. It's water this time, not fire.
Yep. Yep. That's one thing I will say. There is no fire in the making of this picture.
Right. No fires were lit in the making of this movie.
No
fires. So, Chris, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. What are your final thoughts?
It's a really fun movie. Probably didn't like it as much as you did, but I did enjoy it for what it is. I mean, again, I just kind of wish that the Wolfman and Frankenstein through line, the whole Frankenstein and Wolfman, through line plot was more integrated rather than happening so late into the movie.
I agree. They took a long time to get there. Yeah, it's cheesy, but keep in mind this is the first of the monster mashes. Really,
yeah.
I mean, we did cover House of Dracula, but that comes a couple of films after this.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the one that started it all. This is the shared universe.
Yeah, that's one thing I will say. It sort of started that tradition of what we see now of crossovers, as it were. Like it's so commonplace now, but like when this happened for 1943, this must have been the thing that audiences they just freaked over. I can only imagine.
Oh yeah, I mean I've always wanted to go back in time to 1941 so I could see the Wolfman first run and then this one, And or Ghost of Frankenstein, but would love to have seen this with opening audiences. I mean, they must have gone ballistic on this.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, this is one of my favorites. I have to say, my son and my grandson love this one as well as the Wolfman. We're big Wolfman people in this house.
Nice.
like I said before too, I did feel the fight this time around was exciting, more so than before, especially the lead in with, like you said, with the equipment and the sound effects of the equipment, and then for me, as much as it has shortcomings, it all kind of works for me. Yeah, they could have gotten to that Frankenstein Wolfman through line sooner, but it is what it is. I thought the pacing was all right, and the fight should have been longer, but overall, I just love this movie, and I highly recommend it.
No, I mean, it's a fun one. I think in particular, if we're introducing, this whole concept of watching these movies, I'd say definitely see this one if you want to see the start of a crossover, especially with arguably two of the most famous of the monsters in this universe. Then this is a good one to watch.
Yeah. Okay, folks, thanks for joining us today for part 2 of our discussion on the Universal Frankenstein movies. Don't forget to sit down with someone you know who hasn't seen these films and have a great time watching them. On the next and final installment of the Frankenstein series, we will be discussing House of Frankenstein, and we're going to wrap things up with Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. You can send your feedback to thenisnow42@gmail.com. You can also join in the conversation at our Facebook Then Is Now podcast group. Then Is Now podcast is a proud member of the Dorkening Podcast Network, so be sure to check out the other great shows there at thedorkening.com.
And you can find me at storiesmotion.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at storiesofmotion. And don't forget, you can also visit our website, heavenpodcast.com, where you'll find our sister show, The East Meets the West, in which we discuss Shaw Brothers films and spaghetti western movies. And while you're there, click on the Patreon and TeePublic links to get some exclusive stuff.
That's right, folks. And Then Is Now is on YouTube, so please visit youtube.com/user/UncleDeath1 to get the latest videos, as well as other fun videos. Please subscribe to our YouTube page and also share the video versions of our podcasts with your friends and get them to subscribe as well. And don't forget to hit that little bell so you can get notifications when we have new videos out. Also, don't forget to go wherever you download your podcast from and leave us a great review so that more listeners can find us. You can find us on all the podcasting apps, especially the big three, iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. Class dismissed.
The Then Is Now podcast is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. Sounds, music, and clips played during this podcast are the property of their copyright holders. All original content is copyright Jupiter Media.
For more shows like the one you just heard, check out the Dorkening Podcast Network at thedorkening.com.